What happens when the quiet black kid in school finally decides to speak up and the entire school falls silent? Let's dive in to see how one moment can change everything. Marcus Johnson was not your ordinary high school student. At 17, he was known throughout Westridge High as the quiet kid, the one who always sat in the back corner of the classroom, eyes focused on his notebook, rarely volunteering answers despite knowing them. His silence wasn't from lack of intelligence. Marcus was brilliant, arguably the smartest student in his grade, but years of being overlooked had taught him that sometimes invisibility was easier. For 3 years, Marcus had navigated the hallways of Westridge like a shadow, slipping between crowds unnoticed, eating lunch alone in the library, and disappearing from teachers' radars despite his perfect grades. His father, a respected community doctor, always encouraged him to speak up more, but Marcus had found comfort in his quietude. His mother understood better, telling him, "Some people fill rooms with their voice, others with their presence." Everything changed during the first week of senior year. Mrs. Patel, the new English teacher, assigned a group project worth 40% of their final grade. As she called out names for teams, Marcus silently hoped to work alone as most teachers allowed. And finally, Mrs. Patel announced, "Team 5 will be Marcus Johnson, Devin Winters, Tyler Brooks, and Amanda Chin." Marcus's heart sank. Devin Winters, the school's star quarterback with an ego to match. Tyler Brooks, Devin's right-hand man who barely passed classes without help. And Amanda Chin, student council president and valedictorian candidate who never acknowledged Marcus's existence despite them sharing honors classes for years. The next day, the group met in the library after school. Marcus arrived first, setting up his materials neatly at a corner table. "Look who showed up." Devin laughed as he sauntered over 15 minutes late, Tyler in tow. "It's the ghost kid." "Does he even talk?" Tyler snickered. "I don't think I've ever heard him say a word." "Maybe he can't." "Guys, stop it," Amanda said, rolling her eyes as she joined them. "Let's just figure out how to divide this work so we can get it done with minimal interaction." Marcus remained silent, his expression unchanged as they talked around him rather than to him. "So, Marcus," Amanda said slowly, as if speaking to a child, "since you probably don't want to present, you can handle the research portion. Tyler and Devin will handle the visual aids, and I'll present our findings." Without waiting for his response, not that they expected one, Amanda continued outlining her vision for the project. Marcus noticed immediately that she had completely misinterpreted the assignment, which was to analyze how power dynamics in literature reflect real-world social structures. He cleared his throat quietly. "That's not actually what the assignment—" "Oh my God, it speaks!" Devin interrupted, feigning shock. "Alert the media!" Tyler laughed too loudly, drawing glares from the librarian. Amanda looked annoyed. "Did you have something to add, Marcus?" Marcus inhaled deeply. He'd faced this kind of treatment for years, but something about this moment, perhaps the fact that it was senior year, perhaps the importance of the assignment, made him decide this time would be different. "The assignment," he said, his voice stronger than even he expected, "is to analyze power dynamics in literature as reflections of social structures. What you're describing is a book report. We'll fail if we approach it that way." The three stared at him, clearly shocked that he'd strung together more than 2 words. "Well," Amanda recovered first, a slight flush rising to her cheeks, "I'm sure my approach would be fine. Mrs. Patel likes me. Mrs. Patel specifically said she wants critical analysis, not summaries," Marcus replied, pulling out the assignment sheet and pointing to the highlighted requirements. "And she mentioned she doesn't grade on favoritism but on meeting the criteria exactly as stated." Devin leaned back in his chair, sizing Marcus up with newfound curiosity. "Look at that! The quiet kid's got opinions! And apparently a voice," Tyler added, though his mocking tone had diminished slightly. Amanda scanned the assignment sheet, her expression souring as she realized Marcus was right. "Fine. What do you suggest then, since you're suddenly the expert?" Marcus pulled out his notebook and opened it to reveal pages of organized notes, quotes from the texts, and a preliminary framework for analysis that he'd already prepared. The others leaned forward despite themselves. "I've already outlined approaches for analyzing 3 different texts," he explained, his confidence growing with each word. "We could examine how Orwell uses language as power in 1984, how Morrison depicts social hierarchies in The Bluest Eye, and how Golding shows the evolution of power structures in Lord of the Flies." Amanda's eyes widened slightly as she scanned his notes. "This is actually good," she admitted reluctantly. "Dude, did you do all this last night?" Devin asked, seeming genuinely impressed. "I've had these notes all semester," Marcus replied. "I take detailed notes for every class." Tyler whistled low. "No wonder you always ace the tests." For the next hour, the group actually worked together, with Marcus guiding their discussion. By the end of their session, even Amanda had grudgingly accepted his framework for the project. "Same time tomorrow?" Marcus suggested as they packed up. "Yeah, sure." Devin nodded, then hesitated before adding, "You know, you should speak up more in class. You actually know your stuff." The next day in English class, Mrs. Patel asked a complex question about symbolism in Toni Morrison's work that stumped the whole class. After an uncomfortable silence, Marcus raised his hand, something he'd never done voluntarily before. "Yes, Marcus?" Mrs. Patel seemed pleasantly surprised. His answer was so articulate and insightful that Mrs. Patel beamed. "That's exactly right. Thank you for sharing that excellent analysis." Several students turned to look at him with new eyes, including Amanda, whose expression was a mixture of surprise and reassessment. After class, Mrs. Patel asked Marcus to stay behind. "I'm glad to see you participating," she said warmly. "I noticed your potential on the first day, but I was wondering when you'd choose to show it to everyone else." "I'm trying something new," Marcus replied with a small smile. Over the next few weeks, the group project progressed, but not without challenges. While Amanda had begun to respect Marcus's intellect, Devin and Tyler's attitudes oscillated between genuine collaboration and falling back into old patterns of dismissal. During their 5th meeting, when Marcus was explaining a complex concept, Tyler interrupted. "Man, nobody cares about all these details. Just give us the simple version so we can finish and get out of here. Some of us have actual lives." Marcus felt that familiar urge to retreat, to fold back into his silence. But instead, he closed his notebook and looked Tyler directly in the eyes. "That's the problem," he said quietly but firmly. "Everyone always wants the simplified version, the shortcut. That's why your papers always come back with C's while mine get A's. That's why you're struggling to maintain a GPA that will get you into even a state college, while I've already been pre-accepted to Brown." The table fell silent. Marcus had never revealed that information to anyone at school. "You got into Brown?" Amanda couldn't hide her shock. She'd been aiming for Ivy League schools herself. "Early decision," Marcus nodded. "But that's not the point. The point is that I'm tired of dumbing things down because you won't put in the effort to understand. I'm tired of being invisible until you need answers. I'm tired of being the quiet kid when what you really mean is the kid we can ignore." Devin and Tyler exchanged uncomfortable glances. Amanda stared at her notebook, unable to meet Marcus's eyes. "Look, Marcus," Devin started, his usual swagger absent. "We didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Marcus cut him off. "You've meant it every day for 3 years. All of you have." His voice remained level, but carried an unmistakable edge. "Do you know what it's like to have ideas burning inside you but feel like no one would care if you spoke them? To raise your hand in class, only to have teachers call on someone else? To sit at lunch tables where conversations flow around you like you're not even there?" The library seemed to have gone eerily quiet, as if even the other students were listening. "I never said anything because it was easier to disappear than to fight for space that should have been freely given. But I'm done disappearing." Marcus stood up, gathering his materials. "I'll email you my portion of the project tonight. You can either use it or not, that's up to you. But I'm done letting people like you determine my worth." As he turned to leave, Amanda reached out and touched his arm. Wait, Marcus. Please sit down. Something in her voice made him pause. You're right, she said quietly. We've been terrible. I've been terrible. And I'm sorry. The sincerity in her apology surprised him. Me too, man, Devin added, looking genuinely contrite. I never really thought about how we were making you feel. Tyler nodded, unable to form words but clearly unsettled by Marcus's speech. Marcus slowly sat back down. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, Amanda insisted. It's respect. You're brilliant, Marcus. And we've been idiots not to see it sooner. We should start over, Devin suggested. For real this time. Marcus considered them for a long moment. Okay, he finally agreed. But things need to change. From that day forward, their group dynamics shifted dramatically. Amanda began seeking Marcus's input on other assignments. Devin started acknowledging him in the hallways with genuine greetings. Even Tyler made an effort to engage with him during discussions. Word spread quickly about the quiet kid who stood up to the popular crowd, though few knew the full story. As Marcus began speaking up more in classes, other students started noticing him too. Teachers who had overlooked him for years suddenly called on him regularly, often nodding in approval at his insights. 2 weeks later, their group presented their project to the class. Against everyone's expectations, including his own, Marcus had agreed to present the most complex portion of their analysis. As he stood at the front of the room, he felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the same anxiety that had kept him silent for so long. Then he saw Mrs. Patel's encouraging smile. Amanda gave him a subtle thumbs up from her seat. Even Devin and Tyler were paying attention, without any of their usual distractions. Marcus took a deep breath and began speaking. His voice, clear and confident, filled the classroom as he articulated their analysis with precision and depth. Students who had barely noticed him before were now hanging on his every word. By the time he finished, there was a moment of stunned silence before the class erupted in applause. Exceptional work, Mrs. Patel commended them. Truly college-level analysis. Later that week, Marcus was sitting alone in the cafeteria, by choice this time, reading a book, when Principal Harrington approached his table. Marcus, do you have a moment? He asked. Marcus nodded, marking his place in his book. Mrs. Patel showed me the recording of your group presentation. I was extremely impressed, the principal said. We're organizing a student panel for the district education conference next month, and I'd like you to represent Westridge High. Marcus blinked in surprise. Me? But there are other students who... We need someone who can articulate complex ideas clearly and who has a unique perspective. Principal Harrington interrupted. You're exactly who we need. Before Marcus could respond, he noticed Amanda hurrying toward them, clutching a paper. Sorry to interrupt, Principal Harrington, she said breathlessly. But Marcus needs to see this. Principal Harrington looked between them curiously. I'll let you two talk. Marcus, think about the panel and let me know by Monday. After he walked away, Marcus turned to Amanda. What is it? The school newspaper just released their special issue, she said, unfolding the paper to reveal the headline, Student Spotlight, Celebrating Hidden Talents at Westridge. There, on the front page, was a photo of Marcus during their presentation, alongside a feature article. Corey from the newspaper club was so impressed by your presentation that he wrote this. Amanda explained as Marcus scanned the article, which praised his remarkable intelligence and powerful presence. He interviewed all three of us for quotes. Amanda continued. We told him how you completely transformed our project and how we'd all misjudged you. Marcus was speechless, running his fingers over the printed words as if to confirm they were real. That's not all, Amanda said, tapping another section of the paper. The editor mentioned you're the first student in Westridge history to be accepted to Brown through early decision. People are talking about you, Marcus, in a good way. By the end of the day, dozens of students had approached Marcus to congratulate him, some he'd never spoken to before, others he'd sat beside for years in silence. Several teachers stopped him in the hallway to express their pride. Devin caught up with him after school. Hey, Marcus. A bunch of us are hanging out at Rivera Park on Saturday. You should come. Marcus hesitated, but something in Devon's expression seemed genuine. I'll think about it. Cool. Devon nodded. And hey, I meant to ask, would you mind helping me with my college essays? My dad's on my case about applications, and after seeing how you write. He trailed off, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable. Marcus was about to reflexively decline, but stopped himself. Sure. How about Sunday afternoon at the library? Devon's face lit up. Really? That would be awesome. Thanks, man. The following Monday, Marcus walked into school with a strange realization: he was no longer invisible. Students greeted him by name. Teachers nodded respectfully. Even the principal waved from his office door. In English class, Mrs. Patel announced their group had received the highest score of the semester. Your analysis set a new standard, she told them, beaming. Especially your section on power dynamics in marginalized communities, Marcus. It was exceptional. As if on cue, the classroom door opened, and Dr. Simmons, the school's academic counselor, stepped in. Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Patel. Could I borrow Marcus for a moment? In the hallway, Dr. Simmons could barely contain her excitement. Marcus, I just got off the phone with the admissions director at Brown. They've selected you for their Distinguished Scholars Program, full tuition, plus a stipend for research. Marcus felt like the hallway was spinning. But I didn't apply for that. They selected you based on your application materials and Mrs. Patel's recommendation, Dr. Simmons explained. This is extraordinary, Marcus. Only 5 students in the country receive this honor each year. News of Marcus's scholarship spread through Westridge like wildfire. By lunchtime, the entire school seemed to know. As he walked into the cafeteria, he noticed something unprecedented: an empty seat saved for him at what was unofficially known as the popular table. Devon waved him over. Amanda smiled warmly as he approached. Even Tyler seemed genuinely pleased to see him. Brown's distinguished scholar, joining us mere mortals for lunch. Devon joked, but his tone held nothing but admiration. As Marcus sat down, he realized something profound had changed. It wasn't just that others saw him differently now, he saw himself differently too. His voice mattered. His thoughts had value. And he would never allow himself to be silenced again. 3 months later, on graduation day, Marcus stood at the podium as the surprise guest speaker, a role traditionally given to the valedictorian or class president, but unanimously voted to him by the senior class. Looking out at the sea of faces, at the teachers who now called on him first, at the students who now greeted him in hallways, at Devon, Tyler, and Amanda in the front row cheering him on, Marcus felt a sense of calm confidence that once seemed impossible. For 3 years, he began, I was known as the quiet kid. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I thought no one wanted to hear it. I was wrong. We all have voices that deserve to be heard. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one most worth listening to. As thunderous applause filled the auditorium, Marcus caught his parents' eyes in the crowd. His father wiped away tears while his mother beamed with pride. For the boy who once sought invisibility, being seen, truly seen, felt like coming home. After the ceremony, as families and friends gathered on the lawn, Mrs. Patel approached Marcus with a small gift box. For the student who taught me as much as I taught him, she said, handing it to him. Inside was a journal with his name embossed on the cover and a quote on the first page. Never let the fear of silence drown out the power of your voice. Marcus Johnson, once known only as the quiet kid, had found his voice. And everyone was listening. Wow, friends! Wasn't that an incredible journey? Sometimes the people we overlook the most are the ones with the most to offer. Marcus's story reminds us all that every voice matters, especially those that have been silenced for too long. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content just like this. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how our community spans the globe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.